You know, maybe we could learn a lesson from Sarah Palin. When the Royal Dutch Shell Kullig rig got stuck on the rocky shores of Alaska on New Year's Eve, the people of that state were paying very close attention. And it wasn't just because they worried about the potential for another environmental disaster in their backyard. It was because they pay attention very closely to their state's oil industry in general because they all make a lot of money from it. Alaska is unique, and it has something called the Alaska Permanent Fund, believing that all residents of the state should profit off the resources that are naturally below their feet. Alaska takes the money that big oil corporations pay them in oil leases and royalties, invests that money, and then distributes the return on those investments to each and every resident of the state. So every year, every single man, woman, and child in Alaska gets a check for between $1,000 and $2,000 on average. So if you're a husband and wife with 2 kids, you could earn as much as $8,000 at the end of the year. And that's not pocket change for a working family trying to make it during this Republican Great Recession. I'd say Republican Great Depression. Thanks to the supplemental income to each resident of Alaska, the state enjoys the 3rd highest median income in the nation and is also the 2nd most equal state in the nation. It's a system that works. It's been embraced by both Democrats and Republicans, even Sarah Palin. So why don't we do this in the rest of the country? I mean, we actually sort of already do apply it to the rest of the country, but only the billionaires, get the checks. Right now, our entire economic model, largely controlled by the billionaire class, depends on enriching the lives of shareholders and business owners, but not average working class Americans. From Wall Street to big oil to the for-profit health insurance industry, business decisions are always made in the context of what's going to increase the wealth of the shareholders. I mean, take a look at the Forbes 400 richest Americans, and you'll see a list of billionaires who collect most of their money in the form of non-labor dividend income from things that they own, like businesses, stock, land, infrastructure. Paris Hilton gets a steady stream of dividend checks from her family's hotel business. The Koch brothers get their regular checks in the mail courtesy of the massive energy conglomerate their dad built up, known as Koch Industries. Mitt Romney continues to collect his checks from Bain Capital. It's good to be a shareholder or corporate owner in capitalist America, and that's all well and good. But aren't we all shareholders in our commons, just like the Alaskans are? And being such, shouldn't we collect dividends every time our commons turns a profit for others, just like Alaskans? In Alaska, the money that oil corporations pay to lease and extract oil in public lands is distributed to all Alaskans equally. So nationally, the money from oil and gas extraction could be distributed to Americans equally, too. In 2007, the U.S. government collected $9 billion in royalty payments from big oil on just the drilling done in the Gulf of Mexico. Just the drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. In reality, we should have collected a lot more, but the U.S. ranks 93rd in the world in how much revenue we get from oil and gas extraction compared to those profits that the industries enjoy. This has something to do with Ronald Reagan. From 1954 to 83, the average lease for federal land was $2,224 an acre. But after Reagan, from 83 to 2008, the average lease was just $263 an acre, not $2,200. Now, why that happened is a whole nother rant, which we will get into some other time. But let me just suffice to say, it all began with Reagan.com. Anyhow, or it all started with Reagan.com. But still, $9 billion in royalties from just the Gulf of Mexico is a considerable chunk of change. And if we were going to distribute all that money equally to all Americans like they do in Alaska, it's about $30 a person. Now, when you consider that everybody in the United States, it's not too much money, but when you throw in the leases and royalties paid everywhere else around the nation, I mean, keep in mind, that was just the Gulf of Mexico. We're drilling like crazy all over the place. Plus, we're pulling gas out of the ground like there's no tomorrow. We got coal mines, East Coast drilling platforms, fracking wells, Appalachian coal mines, oil derricks in the Midwest and Texas. You add all that stuff up, and if we did what Alaska does, you're talking serious money. Not only that, think of how much money is put into our common military to defend the interests of big oil abroad, to make sure that the shipping lanes stay open and the oil spigot keeps flowing. Big oil should contribute a fee for that service, which can also be added to this common permanent fund to be shared by all Americans. And what about making big oil pay for their pollution of the commons? Cap and trade system, which forces polluters to pay for how much carbon they dump into the atmosphere. Great start. Could raise even more money for our commons permanent fund to be shared by all of us. By the way, Nancy Pelosi passed such a thing. Not that the money was shared, but a cap and trade system for carbon fuels. Got passed out of the House of Representatives. It had more than 50 votes in the Senate. The Republicans filibustered it. Another, reason why we need filibuster reform. But I digress. The point is, our commons belong to all of us. Our mineral wealth belongs to all of us. It should be enriching all of us and not just the billionaires who've planted their flags in the ground. And it shouldn't stop at just oil. Wall Street relies heavily on our commons too. Our markets are regulated by common government, enforced through common courts, and fueled by workers who are educated in our commons, our public school system. So how about a small financial transaction tax on every single trade, just a fraction of a penny, so that we, the shareholders in this nation, also get to see gains from a booming market? Or better yet, as entrepreneur and defender of the commons Peter Barnes proposes, we should all get a cut every time a company goes private. Barnes argues, quote, when a company like Facebook or Google goes public, its value rises dramatically. Experts call this liquidity premium and is generated not by the company but by society. This socially created wealth now flows mostly to a small number of Americans. Let's say we required public companies to deposit 1% of their shares in the common fund for 10 years, up to a total of 10%. In due time, the common fund would have the diversified portfolio worth trillions of dollars. Excuse me, I said when we take a private, I meant when we take them public. Now, consider the enormous profits that radio, TV, and entertainment companies receive by using our common air and infrastructure. Or publishers, our common copyright laws, or authors. I'm one of them. I make money off the copyright laws. I think I should be sharing that with everybody in the country because, the copyright laws are part of the commons. It's not an enormous amount of money, but hey, what the heck? They, too, should be paying into the common fund. Add together all these rents for using our commons, and we, the people, have raised quite a bit of money for our common permanent fund that could go a long way to supplementing the annual incomes of millions of Americans who desperately need a bit more cash. Somehow, as capitalism was left to run amok in America over the last few decades, we forgot the important role our commons can play in enriching all of our lives. Rather than CEOs and billionaires paying us to use our commons, pollute our air and water, dictate our military missions, exploit our markets, hijack our radio, TV airwaves, it's all been flipped upside down, and we end up paying them. We give them subsidies, tax breaks, free usage. Come on. We need a national permanent fund. Let's do what Sarah Palin did.